welcome to Weather Terrible. Today we have a new deck called Return of the Dunes, featuring the new Basculegion from Lost Origin with the Upstream Spirits attack, doing 20x damage for each basic energy in your discard pile, and then shuffles all of them back into the deck. It is a free energy attack, that means you get to play any type of basic energy in the deck for Basculegion to do big damage. So we're using this card with our Sandaconda from Battle Stars with a big sand cannon attack, discarding the top 6 cards of your deck and doing 60x damage for each fighting energy you discard in this way. So we get to do up to 360 damage for only 1 energy, knocking out a V-Star or even a VMAX Pokemon with 1 hit if we get a full energy discard. We're not playing a lot of energies in this deck since we have so many evolutions, so don't expect to do more than 180 damage for your first strike if you haven't played any of your trainer cards yet. We're also playing 2 copies of Zoroark with the Phantom Transformation ability, allowing to replace this card with any stage 1 Pokemon in the discard pile. That means we get to revive either our Sandaconda or Basculegion, depending on what we need at the moment. We're also playing 1 Klara to retrieve our Pokemon energies from the discard pile, 4 Sonia and 3 Hisuian Basculin to set up our bench, and 4 Arezu with 1 Ultra Ball to search for our evolutions. We're also playing 1 Strike Milotic to guard our bench against Avery or our hand against Marnie by preventing all effects of our opponent's supporter cards done to you or your hand with its amazing Deal Guard ability. Finally, we also have 1 Raiding Greninja for the draw spot, 1 Manaphy for the bench barrier, and 30 basic fighting energies. We also have another variation of this deck that plays an extra copy of Hisuian Basculin, giving us a higher chance of doing Gather the Crew on our first turn going second to bench 2 extra basics. For this deck, we don't have any Klara or Milotic, but we do have an extra copy of Ultra Ball, Sandaconda, and Comfy to help us evolve faster. Our third list is a Gambler's Choice pick, playing 34 basic energies with less Pokemon and trainer cards. So that's all for the deck list. Now let's go for some gameplays! Okay, let's go here for our first game versus Giratina VStar. So they got the full Lost engine with Sableye and Cramorant. Sableye is looking up to be the most annoying card in format, because you get to snipe for 12 damage counter to your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like, and if you play that early, and if you keep doing that, you can actually play Summoning Horn. I've seen people do Echoing Horn with Sableye as well, which is just crazy. You get to target those bench Pokemon, the support Pokemons on the bench, like Manaphy, Dunsparce, or like Bibarel. Anything on the bench is up for grabs, and then you actually get to revive it with your Summoning Horn. Echoing Horn, my bad. You get to play Echoing Horn to put it back onto the bench, and then kill those 1 price basics fast and easy, and eventually play Radiant Charizard at last minute. Radiant Charizard to collect 2 extra prizes for the final draw, for the final 2 prize, by doing a Choice Belt against a V-Star. If you do, if you're up against VMAX though, it's not that easy, but you can collect the knockout with your Sableye later on against a VMAX, unless if they heal. So the only way to defeat a Sableye is probably a Goodra VStar or any other heal decks. I don't see any way of winning against a Sableye that easily, unless if you're doing a 1 price deck with high HP. Because if you do like a Lunatone, they can slowly collect enough damage counters for the knockout. If you do Lunatone with enough scoop up nets though, I think you can win against a Sableye quite easily, because you can scoop up to recover the damage counters immediately after they place them. They have to kind of do a double knockout within this turn, otherwise on the next turn you can quite easily scoop it up and recover the damage counters. But you only have 4 scoop up nets to spare though. I don't think you need more than that, because if you have 3 inside the deck, if you collect your first prize, if they, if they can't do Lost Mine on the first turn going second, if they go first, well, if they go first, my bad, on their second turn, they may already be able to do Lost Mine, because all they need is play enough Chorus, enough Scoop Up Net. They can even do like Pokestop to get the item cards out, to do enough switches for them to play Flower Selecting and lost up to 10 cards in 2 turns. So on their second turn going first, they may be able to play Lost Mine already. So if you're going second with Lunatone, you better be collecting your first prize, otherwise you're done for. So here comes a double Cramorant on the bench. We are playing a high HP stage 1 Pokemon. That means they can't actually kill our Sandaconda that easily with Cramorant. 130 HP. And we actually get to survive the first hit. Even after collecting our first prize on the last turn, we are still denying them from that one prize draw. So we're playing a full one prize and they're playing a Giratina VStar. So it's looking really, really good for us. All we need to do is evolve the Zoroark, Sandaconda, and Basculegion on the bench, and we got an Arezu on for the next turn. They are not playing that many Marnies for this deck because they need Colrus. So if you do a Lost Box, chances are the first few turns you can't play a Marnie. That means your opponent can actually keep their hand on the first few turns, which is a big plus. That means, you know, it's actually changing the format a little bit because Marnie is kind of impossible for a Lost Box. I don't think you get to play that at all until maybe your third or fourth turn. Okay, here comes the boss. So we are making sure that all Pokemons in play are only one energy retreat except for Zoroark, obviously. So only evolve your Zoroark if you have any Pokemon in the discard pile, right? If you have a Sandaconda or a Basculegion on the discard pile, only then should you be evolving the Zoroark, because it actually has 2 energy retreat costs. But sometimes you may not have a choice though. If your opponent are expected to play Marnies in their deck, if you know they have Marnies there, if you don't want to get Marnie on your next turn, you should be evolving the Zoroark anyways. Even if they do a boss and you get stuck, at least you have an extra Pokemon to attack with. So let's do Big Sand Cannon for a second knockout. We only need 2 energy discards for the to kill the Cramorant, and we got 3. So for this list, we're playing the Klara one. We have Klara and Pokegear as well. So this is kind of a different list. Initially, we had like 35 basic energy. When I started off building this deck, I really wanted to make it like super, super powerful, like close to a Kyogre Groudon deck from Celebrations. So I don't think you get to play that many energies though, because it's a stage 1 deck. If you're playing an evolution deck, you need a lot more consistency cards, you need a lot more trainer cards, supporters, items to get your evolutions, and also to bench enough for the next turn. Because if they play Avery, you have to re-bench everything and you have to retrieve your discarded Pokemons as well with Klara. I don't think you get to play, I don't think you get to play that many energies if you're doing a full-on evolution deck. Even if it's just stage 1, it's still a full evolution. Like, we're not attacking with a basic Pokemon at all. We are using our Basculin to set up though. Gather the Crew is a 0 energy attack that allows you to bench 2 Pokemons. Put 2 Pokemon, search your deck for any 2 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench early in the game, which is grand because you get to set up for your next turn. In addition to your Marnie, in addition to Sonia's bench power and also that 1 extra copy of Ultra Ball. I think the best list would be the first variation, which is the one with the Milotic and also Klara. I prefer that one, but I think it's kind of on par, almost the same as, just because Milotic is that good. Because if they play Avery, you're completely screwed because you need all Pokemons in play. You need your Zoroark, Basculegion, and also Sandaconda. You cannot afford to waste any one of them. So if they play Avery, you're gonna have to re-bench everything and waste a whole nother turn just to wait for the evolution. And you may not be able to get your supporter cards that easily after the Avery. You need to immediately bench and immediately evolve, otherwise you won't have enough attackers left. So we can't actually, we can't do it that easily. We can't summon our Pokemons that easily into our hand and, get them into play fast, just because we only have limited amount of supporter cards in this deck. And, 4 copies is obviously not enough for the evolution. Even with that 1 extra Ultra Ball, it's just not enough. So that's why Milotic is so powerful. It's so crucial because it protects your bench, it protects your hand. If you play, you get to play Arezu and then just pass the turn, and then on the next turn evolve your Pokemons. That's how powerful Milotic is. You get to play Arezu just to make sure you don't discard your evolutions. If you discard them, you're forced to play a Klara, you're forced to evolve your Zoroark to transform. You have much less Pokemons to attack with. If you discard your Pokemons as well, you're doing less damage with your Big Sand Cannon. So Arezu Milotic is kind of the perfect combo. I prefer the Milotic one, but you can choose to be a gambler. You know, if you are a high risk player, then go for the second or the third variation, because that actually works much better. The second one is a bit safer though, the one with the Comfy. If you play Comfy, you actually get to draw a lot faster. That means even though you are losing one card from the deck, you actually get to search for Arezu much easier. So you get to evolve much faster, you get to bench your Pokemons with your Sonia much easier. If you get, Basculin to start, you can actually use Gather the Crew and then, Greninja for the draw. You can search for either a Comfy or Greninja for when you get stuck. So only play your Comfy if you have no other Pokemon to attack with. If you cannot do anything else, then might as well just draw, right? Might as well just use Flower Selecting rather than just pass a turn doing nothing. If you can't play any cards from your hand, if you can't attack, just use your Comfy to prepare for your next turn. You can actually swap that Comfy for a Diancie. I thought about Diancie, but eventually decided against it just because Diancie draws the card and actually passes the turn. If you draw with Spike Draw, and if you get Marnie on your next turn, then you can't actually keep the cards on your hand anymore. If you draw, like for example, Sandacondas into your hand, and then they play a Marnie, that would be terrible. So I prefer drawing and playing the cards on the same turn before passing to your opponent, because that way you get to evolve right now, and even if they do a boss, you would at least be able to, draw something else on your next turn in addition to that evolution. So here comes the Giratina. And they do have a Marnie. Look at that. They just lost to the Marnie and they're playing a Lost City. So Lost City is probably the most scary card if you're playing a Zoroark deck. The most dangerous card to watch out for is Lost City. So if they play a Lost City, if you are having Zoroark in the deck, do not evolve it. Like, just don't bench your Zoroark at all. Obviously, you may, maybe just bench one, honestly. Sorry about that, because you may discard evolutions with your Big Sand Cannon. If you discard it with the attack, or you can actually discard it with Ultra Ball just to transform your Zoroark. But I would recommend, if you have Sonia or if you are playing your Basculin, to search for Pokemons to bench. If they are playing Lost City, if you saw Lost City on the Mulligans, then make sure you bench your Sandacondas, your Silicobra, and your Basculin instead of the Zoroark, just because they can actually lost it. That means if they knock out your Pokemon, you cannot actually transform into the dead Pokemon, because the dead Pokemon is going into the Lost Zone. It's not going into your discard pile. That means Zoroark is not going to be able to attack using Sandaconda's attack. It's not going to be able to transform into Basculegion. So there's just no point playing a Zoroark at all, unless if you're lucky enough to discard evolutions with your Big Sand Cannon. So we have 4 copies of Sandaconda for the first variation, and also the second, if I'm not mistaken. The third one has only 3 copies. So if you play 3 copies, a bit more risky, just because they can lost your Pokemons. But since we have only 3 Silicobras though, we do have Zoroark, right? So if we discard, if we have 2 Ultra Balls for the list, the second and third variation I think has 2 Ultra Balls. The first and second, my bad. I'm not too sure now actually. So one of the lists has like 2 Ultra Balls. And if you play 2 Ultra Balls, it's more easy for you to discard the second, like for your next Sandaconda, right? If you discard it from your hand, you can transform with a Zoroark. If they play a Lost City, that means you can evolve. You can play at least like 3 Sandacondas in a game with 1 or 2 Basculegions against a Lost City deck. So all you need honestly is 1 Basculegion at the right time. If you can play that attack, Upstream Spirits at just the right time, you can actually do a lot more damage with your Sandaconda on your next turn. And on the next, after, you know, a lot more after that as well. So you can actually think about playing your Sandaconda, attacking with it twice before using your Basculegion, obviously. And then after that, attacking with Sandaconda another 2 times before you do your second Upstream Spirits. Because that way you get to do more damage with your Basculegion. You also get to do more damage with your Big Sand Cannon after you shuffle those energies back. So they're playing a Drapion. Very smart and strategic deck list, I guess. They have full-on Lost Box with Sableye, Giratina, Cramorant, and they even have an extra Drapion to seal the deal against Fusion Strike decks. Against Urshifu as well. Rapid Strike Urshifu has Lost City now, so if they play Manaphy, you can quite easily do a boss, or even, you know, Pokemon Catcher. I don't think you should be doing Pokemon Catcher, right? Cross Switcher to kill off the Manaphy with Irida. Irida Inteleon, I guess. Okay, here comes another Cramorant. They got 3 cards left in the deck. We got 1 remaining prize. We just used Basculegion to attack, so now we either just need to transform into the Sandaconda if we have it in the discard pile, though. I don't think we have any Sandacondas in the discard pile. There we go. So we are kind of in trouble unless if we can draw out the Ultra Ball. And I'm not sure if we are playing Ultra Ball for this list. This is kind of an off list just because I don't think it fits any of the 3 deck lists that I just reviewed, just because this is one of the earlier versions. When I first experimented with this combo, we had a lot more energies, like 34, 35 maybe, which is a bit too ambitious, I would say. So the first few games you would get quite lucky and they would give you your supporter cards easily into your hand. But when you reach the 5th or the 8th game, I would say about after the 7th game, you play with the same list, there would be challenges. There would come challenges that actually test out how consistent your deck really is. And that would be like the real test, right? The real test that determines whether or not your deck is good enough. And if your deck isn't consistent, if it doesn't have enough cards to counter, you know, sticky situations, then you can't actually win the game. So make sure you make the deck, you have, you know, tech cards that actually can help you counter the weakness of each weak points of a deck, because every deck has its weak point, and you know it's very tricky to think about how to solve the problem for each deck, because every deck not only has a problem, but every solution has a problem as well. So if you have a tech card, that tech card is going to give you a disadvantage of its own, which you need to counter by kind of arranging it or by adding another combo into the deck to make it like to diffuse the bomb, right? To make it less explosive, to kind of manage the situation and balance things out. If you don't balance the consistency of the deck, if you don't balance the weak point, the disadvantage with the advantage of your deck, it's not going to be that powerful. We want not just powerful though, we want it to be what do you call that? We want it to be a versatile deck, you know, a deck that that has the potential to win against any matchup. And to be able to do that, we need to have proper tech cards. Okay, here comes a Hisuian Zoroark, and I think they are playing Dunsparce for this list. I'm not too sure though. We have 3 matchups, 3 Zoroark matchups for this video. People love Zoroark for some reason, and we just caught 3 Zoroark wins. So this is the first one, and I think they are playing a Dunsparce, but for some, I don't think they played it that early. I think the best Zoroark list would be the one with Melanie, because Melanie allows you to play powerful energy. If you do double turbo, you're doing 20 less. That means you kind of need Choice Belt and Howlucha to kill off a VMAX. If you do Melanie, if you play Melanie with Zoroark, you can do Greninja for the draw support. You can also play your powerful energy with Choice Belt to hit for a Goodra VStar knockout, 350 damage. I don't think the one with double turbo can hit that high, even with like Choice Belt and Howlucha, because Howlucha only works against VMAX. So if they play Goodra VStar, you need 350 damage to kill it off, and with one hit. And Zoroark is only doing 310 damage with Choice Belt. 310 with Choice Belt is not enough. So Moisture Star is going to be really annoying, because that means you need 3 strikes, 3 hits to kill off a Goodra, and then on the next turn, if they get another one into play, if they attack again with the next Goodra, you need 2 more strikes just to kill it off. So Escape Rope Boss, I think, would be the only way to deal with a Goodra, or maybe like Gmax Pulverization, any attacks that ignores all effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. I don't see a lot of effects though. I don't see a lot of attacks that has that effect, that kind of ignores the damage reduction. So you could play like Tornadus from Brilliant Stars, scoop it up to recycle the ability, and also a boss, Tornadus with a boss. I think that would be, you know, I think that would solve the Goodra problem. If you do like, for example, a Palkia V-Star with Cross Switcher, you can do a boss after that as well. Escape Rope would be smarter though. If you play enough Escape Rope, you don't need to waste your deck space for the Cross Switcher. But you get to play supporter cards though, right? If you play Cross Switcher, you get to play Irida to search for the item, and then Shady Dealings to search for your Escape Rope or something. Okay, they are not getting the Gape Jaw yet. So they're giving us a lot of turns to set up. And we got a full bench right now. That's why we have so many Basculins in this deck. So if you haven't figured it out already yet, the first Basculin that we're using to fill up our bench is actually gonna die on the next turn. So we have to expect it to get knocked out. If they boss something else though, we'll have a lot of Basculins in play, which would be quite terrible. So make sure you only have an extra copy of Basculin on the bench, because they can quite easily do a boss. Or if they escape rope, if they do an escape rope, you should be putting the Basculin in, the second Basculin into the active, because we have 4 copies of Basculin in this deck, and that is a lot. That's the highest number of basic Pokemon in this deck. We only are playing 2 Zoroarks and 3 Silicobra, 1 Manaphy, 1 Reading Greninja obviously, but only you know, only 3 Silicobras. The reason we're playing that many Basculin is because, you know, they, for some reason, they target the Basculin. They always kind of boss it and knock it out. Just because, you know, if you done Sandaconda, by the time you do your second strike, you're gonna do, you know, your third strike, my bad. By the time you do your third hit, Big Sand Cannon is not gonna do a lot of damage anymore. It's gonna discard a lot more of your supporter cards. It's gonna discard your Pokemon. You're gonna be stuck, and eventually you're gonna deck yourself out. If you keep on playing Big Sand Cannon, you're gonna deck yourself out, and that's what your opponent wants. That's why they should be targeting your Basculegion. And if you play only 2 Basculins, you're gonna have to discard the Legion with either Big Sand Cannon or from your hand to evolve the Zoroark to transform into the Legion. That's why Zoroark is so important in this deck, because if we don't play Zoroark, it's gonna be a lot more difficult to choose which attacker that you want. That ability is so useful, because you get to choose to transform into either to attack with either another Sandaconda or with a Basculegion. And you can choose to transform whenever you want, right? at just the right time, you can choose to keep it in play as a Zoroark until you need it, until you need to transform, and then do it at the right time. Okay, we got no evolutions. We're stuck for this game, as you can see. And this is like really, really bad. We got no Arezu, no Ultra Ball, nothing. That's why comfy Greninja is so important. So if you can't attack, if you can't do anything at all, at least you get to draw 2 cards with your Greninja and another 2 more. Well, not 2, but you get to basically run through your deck 2 extra cards with your comfy. And we have our Ultra Ball right now to get the stage 1, our first Sandaconda for our first knockout, and they just benched a Oranguru instead of the Dunsparce, which is a bit depressing because now it's for certain we're gonna get a Zoroark knockout because we only need 2 discards. Because they just transferred the damage counters onto the active, which is quite silly, I would say. I think we did 20 damage on the last turn, my bad. They didn't transfer any damage counters. We did 20 damage with our silly Cobra. That means we're doing like 40 with the weakness. And now we just need 2 discards. But we got like 5 discards. So 5 discards is equal to 300 damage, which would actually kill the Zoroark without the weakness anyways. So even if they have a Dunsparce, we would be killing off the first Hisuian VStar. Okay, now we need to think about getting out the second Sandaconda, which would be a bit tricky. What are they going to do right now? Okay, they can actually choose to do a boss. Or escape rope, but they should be killing off the active. So after using your second cannon, you should really be using your Basculegion to attack. Don't use Big Sand Cannon 3 times in a row, because if you use it for your third strike, you're going to end up discarding your supporter cards and your evolutions, way too many of your Pokemons, until you have no other attackers or resources to draw them out. That means you're going to be left with, not only that you're not doing a lot of damage for your third strike either, because you're discarding a lot more of your trainer and Pokemons than your energy, just because you have a lot more, you have a lot less energy after attacking a few times. So it's always the golden rule to use your Basculegion for your third attack, Big Sand Cannon twice, and that twice in a row before doing Basculegion, and then same thing, repeat twice, once, twice, once, right? Upstream Spirits is a very powerful attack that should be used when you have a lot of energies in your discard pile. You can actually choose to play Skull Bash as well. If you can't actually, if you don't want to discard your deck, if you don't want to discard your trainer cards or your Pokemon, you can choose to play Skull Bash and then wait until your Sandaconda gets knocked out while drawing cards with your Greninja, because you are discarding a lot more with your concealed cards. And if you keep on attaching the same 1 energy at a time to your Sandaconda to do Skull Bash, and also for the retreat cost, you can actually wait until it gets knocked out, and then that allows you to collect more energies in your discard pile for you to do a lot more damage with Basculegion for a 1-hit knockout against a V-Star or even a V-Max. So all we need is about 16, my bad. If we have 16 basic energy in the discard pile, we're only playing fighting energy in this deck, so we have no capture, no stone energy, no other energies in this deck but our basic fighting, just because Sandaconda only does more damage for basic fighting energy with its Big Sand Cannon attack, and Basculegion only does 20x for each basic energy you shuffle back into your deck. So basic energy is the way to go for this deck. That's why we have nothing but basic fighting. And all we need is 16, right? 16 to kill a VMAX, 17 to kill Eternatus. Eternatus actually is weak towards Sandaconda though, so if you're playing against Eternatus, try to kill it with your Sandaconda instead of Basculegion, but Basculegion can still do a 1-hit knockout if you want to collect enough energies in the discard pile. I prefer playing a strategic way. Like, I prefer the clockwork manner like doing Big Sandaconda twice and then Upstream Spirits and then recycle, repeat, recycle, you know, things like that. If you play that way, it actually makes the deck a lot stronger. Even though you're not doing a lot of damage for your first 2 strikes, at least you're doing way more with your next Big Sand Cannon, right? The second time round, after shuffling cards back into the deck, you would have a lot less Pokemons inside the deck since you have that many in play already, and a lot less supporter cards and trainers as well since you have already played them from your hand. That means you actually get to do a lot, way more damage with your Big Sand Cannon after that Basculegion's Upstream Spirits attack. So that's key for this deck. Play, use your spirits as fast as possible, but not too fast obviously, because otherwise you're not doing enough damage. And also it would be a waste to shuffle back only 6 basic energy into the deck. Just wait until you have discarded a lot more of your resources, until you have used them up and evolved your Pokemons enough. Okay, we're gonna pull out our Sonia for the first turn, and we are up against a Goodra VStar right now. They're playing Goodra with Arceus. So we got Pokekit for this list. Pokekit helps you get any Pokemon from the deck, but only 1 copy. So you can get either your evolution or your basic, which is pretty versatile, but for a supporter card, you should be getting more than 1 copy though. So Klara is kind of better because if you have your Pokemons discarded or knocked out, you can choose 2 of them and put it into your hand, re-bench them, re-evolve your Pokemons. So obviously early in the game, Klara is not going to do anything for you, but if you get it late or, you know, after one of your Pokemon got knocked out on your last turn, it's going to help you a lot, you know, from then on. We got our Arezu thanks to them playing the Marnie. So Marnie really helped us, but I think that was the first card that we drew from the top deck. So even without the Marnie, we would be still okay, I suppose. So we get to attack fast. They haven't done Melanie. That means they have... they may be able to attack on the next turn though, but I don't think it's possible for them to attack on the last. Because they need 3 different types of energies. 2 different type, my bad. And an extra colorless as well. So we did not attach our energy on the last turn. I think we did a retreat. I'm not sure what we did on the last turn. We should be attaching the energy, you know, so that we get to play our Big Sandaconda already. Because if we retreat this turn, we could have done a knockout possibly. Because they haven't even played the Rolling Iron. If they don't attack, then they cannot get the defense buffs. That means we only need 5 discards. If we discard 5 energy from the top deck, we can kill the Goodra. Otherwise, we would need a solid 6 copy. We need full discard to be able to kill off the Goodra. They got Moisture Star. Otherwise, they can heal everything. So playing 2 different V-Star is a bit risky because you can only choose to play either the Moisture or the Star Birth. I would do Moisture though. I would focus more on Goodra's ability, because that ability is just mad insane, yo. So they have a Gyarados as well, because it's a water type, but it is a additional VMAX in the deck. Doing big damage with the Get Angry attack. Memory Capsule for the VMAX, but I think they may be planning on discarding energies with the Gyarados with Hyper Beam. So we got only 180 damage for our first strike. That is kind of expected because we have 30 energies in the deck and 60 cards for the total build. So 30 out of 60 is kind of expected for you to get 180 damage, because you're doing 60x for each discarded energy. And they just gave us another Marnie. Look at that. They're helping us so much by playing the Marnie. Okay, we are playing Gloria for this list. So that's why Sonia is so much better. So this is a bit of a different list. I'm playing a lot more of a variation, a lot more different cards in the deck. I realized eventually that if you play 4 copies, it would actually show up easier into your hand. So eventually I just played like 4 Arezu and 4 Sonias instead of playing like 2 Arezu and maybe no, my bad, only 3 Arezu and maybe 2 Pokekid and like 2 Sonias with 2 Glorias, something like that. I would prefer playing that list honestly, but for some reason if you do that, you would be more likely to get your energies than your supporter cards. I've played this game a lot of times. I played with that deck many games and it just doesn't work. Like for this game we got lucky, I guess, because it's the earliest, like the very first few games that I played, and we get to showcase the power of this deck, but you know, eventually they just gave us really terrible luck. So you need to play either 4 Glorias with 4 Arezu or 4 Sonia. I prefer Sonia just because you get to put them into your hand. If you have a full bench, you cannot play Gloria. That means your supporter card is going to be useless. Rather than drawing them into your hand, you're doing nothing. That means you have extra cards inside the deck that are not energies, that may be discarded from the top of your deck with your big sand cannon, that may actually cause you to do much less damage. So that's why Sonia is so much better. Even though you're benching a little bit less, I would prefer just to get them into your hand, right? That effect actually does a lot. Okay, here comes the Arceus, and they just did Trinity Nova, I think. I don't know what happened. I don't think they did a knockout on the last turn. I seriously don't know what happened. So we did our V-Star knockout this turn. Now we just need to collect the final kill against either the Arceus or the Gyarados, but apparently they're gonna play the VMAX and tank the damage. They may have a Cheryl, so we should be watching out for that. Okay, they didn't kill us. They did not kill the Sandaconda. That's just weird. So we got 2 Zoroarks in play with the Basculegion and an extra Sandaconda. We got everything on the bench. Even with Avery, I don't think they can win this game anymore because we got 2 prize remaining. And we just need to play Basculegion at some point to collect, you know, a full-on V-Star or even a VMAX knockout. I don't think they can attack with the Blastoise because it needs at least 3 energies. They could do like a double turbo for it though. I don't think it's doing enough to kill the Sandaconda. Maybe enough to kill the Basculegion, right? Plus 30 minus 20, so it's only 100 damage. If they have 1 water and 1 double turbo, they need an extra water energy on the Blastoise with a Raihan or something to get a Basculegion knockout. So we got 300 plus damage, I think, if I'm not mistaken, with our Upstream Spirits knocking out a Gyarados V-Star, Gyarados VMAX, but they already have damage counters on it anyways. So that was a lucky game because we got a lot of our supporters into our hand early, and they even played Marnie to help us. Most times Marnie actually destroys your hand, but for that game we actually got lucky against a Marnie. Because they could quite easily play the Marnie when you have Arezus and multiple evolutions already in your hand, and you actually have to pass the turn because you can't evolve it yet. You're forced to pass the turn since you're benching your Pokemon on this turn. So here comes Dialga, Star Chronos. They got 2 prize. They're gonna get 2 prize in a row. So if they boss the right Pokemons, they may be able to destroy us far enough until we couldn't recover. If they kill the Sandaconda when we need it, it's gonna be quite terrible, but we got Zoroark for the safety. So Lost City is probably like the greatest weakness for this deck. The one big fat elephant in the room, the giant elephant that we cannot avoid, is Lost City. Right? What are you gonna do if they play Lost City? I don't know. I tried playing one copy of Zoroark, but it's just not worth it. Like, you may get it priced, and if you get the evolution priced, or even the basic, playing one heavy ball is just not worth it, because you're never gonna get it. If you're not drawing cards from into your hand, you're just never gonna get your heavy ball. If you discard the heavy ball with a big sand cannon, it's just completely useless. So might as well just play Ultra Ball instead of the heavy. I thought about playing one Irida with the heavy ball, but I don't think Irida is worth playing, honestly, just because it doesn't get your Sandaconda or Zoroark unless if you play enough Ultra Balls, and if you do way too many copies of your Ultra Ball, you won't have space for your Arezu. For the 4-4 line, we need 4-4 line. If you have 4 copies of the same card in a deck, it's way more likely for it to show up into your hand. It's just basic statistics, I think. If you have loose copies that does the same thing, does the same effect, I feel like it would be better, but for some reason it just doesn't work. I don't know why. Like, if you have like 2 Pokekit and 2 Arezu and 4 Sonias, technically you would be getting the Pokekit as the Pokekit or the Arezu as, you know, as frequently as with if you play 4 Arezus, right? It would be the same rate, right? It would be the same chance of getting the evolution card, getting the supporter for the evolution, but for some reason they just won't give you any supporter at all. They would just give you the Sonias because you're playing 4 copies of the Sonias. And if you have like only 2 copies of the Sonia with 2 Gloria, then they would be giving you a lot more Pokemons, because you're playing 3 copies of your Sandaconda and Silicobra. You would be getting more energies and possibly the Pokemon instead of the supporter cards. Like, you just wouldn't get anything. Trust me, I've played this game so many times. I played this deck for so long, and it's just, I don't know, I spent way too many hours on this deck. It's a very simple deck, and it really shouldn't be that complex. But I spent so many hours and realized that you need to play 4-4. You cannot go without a solid 4 copy of Arezu, solid 4 copy of Sonia. It's just better that way, I feel. Okay, they got heavy impact. And they're probably gonna stay on the bench until they got the evolution, which would be the smart move. So, bad thing about Dialga is that once it dies, once the first one gets knocked out, they got nothing. I think you need experience share, right? You need experience share for your next one. If you don't play experience share for your second Dialga, then after the Chronos, you're done for, because your opponent is gonna kill off the V-Star. If you invest all of your energy on that one Dialga, and you got no other attackers, you're done for. You wasted your Metal Saucer on that one Pokemon. You wasted all of your resources, all of your turns, attaching energy to only one attacker, that one soldier, and then you got no other troops. Nothing on the bench, no Pokemons to attack with, you're dead. No more Metal Saucer for your next turn as well. Experience share Bronzong for your next Dialga, or maybe Zacian. I don't think Zacian works well though, because Zacian needs to waste a turn for Intrepid Sword to work. So Zacian doesn't really solve the problem much. If you do Intrepid Sword early and get a few lucky energies attached, you can actually play Thornton and then, you know, use your Metal Saucer for later on in the game. So that may be an alternative to a Dialga deck right now. We got Diancie to play, you know, Intrepid Sword as well. Diancie is not perfect, as we all know, because you can play Cross Switcher, Escape Rope. Like, there are ways to counter that card quite easily. Or even canceling Cologne. So funny thing about Wheezing, I just realized something about Wheezing. Wheezing and Enamorous. So this is a funny thing that I was, funny thought experiment that I was doing on one of the previous days. While I was building the Shedinja deck, my Lunatone Thornton box, I realized that Enamorous doesn't really work against Wheezing. I thought it would, but it actually doesn't, because Wheezing shuts down all abilities. It shuts down all of your opponent's Pokemon's abilities, including Enamorous. That means if they if they use their ability to affect your Pokemon that have psychic energy attached, Enamorous doesn't actually prevent neutralizing gas from affecting your psychic energy attached Pokemons. So even if you have psychic energy attached to your Pokemon, it is not able to use its ability since it is not guarded by Enamorous, just because Wheezing is shutting down Enamorous's ability. So Enamorous doesn't protect against Wheezing. That is the final that is the, what do you call that, the conclusion of what I'm trying to say. Which is a bit depressing though, because Wheezing has so little counters. There's so few things that you can do against a Wheezing deck, and it's almost like an auto win now. If you don't play enough bosses, it's almost like a Wheezing is just an auto win standard deck. Is just really ridiculous and lame, fucking annoying. It's almost like a Miltank, right? You can't play Transformation against a Wheezing, but we can still do Big Sand Cannon and Upstream Spirits. So we're not relying too much on abilities for this deck. Greninja though could be very helpful at the right time. If you have Greninja on a bench, and if you are planning on attacking on the same turn with your Sandaconda, I would recommend not drawing any cards with your concealed with your ability, because if you draw anything, you're probably going to draw 2 energies. Like most times when I draw with Greninja, I get 2 energies. Unless if you have done the attack twice, right? If you have done the attack twice already, if you have done Big Sand Cannons twice, then only should you be drawing cards with your Greninja, right? If you haven't done anything, if you haven't discarded enough energies, then don't play Greninja to draw cards. So obviously use it at the right time, but also if you use it before attacking with Sandaconda though, most times I would just get energies, right? Anyways, but you should be thinking about when to use it, not like whether or not to use it at all. You should be you should be using it at some point, obviously, because otherwise Greninja is not going to do anything. So we just killed the first Dialga. Now they're down to nothing. They have to start from scratch. They're gonna do metal coating. So that's the good thing about playing this Silicobra. This old Silicobra has only 1 energy retreat, and that means we just need to attach from our hand, and we get to attack with the same Sandaconda on the bench, but we actually have a second copy in our hand. We can just evolve this Silicobra and attach our energy to do Big Sand Cannon a second time. They did not evolve because they have to keep it as the basic if they want to do metal coating. So now we just need 4 discards. If we got 4 discards, we can kill off the Dialga. We have a lot of... Okay, we got a lot... Okay, we're doing a knockout. We're definitely doing a knockout because we got only 2 cards left in the deck that are not energies. That means if we are unlucky enough to get both those 2 non-energies at the top 6, then we would at least get 240 damage, which is enough to kill off the V card, and we actually got 360. So this deck is actually featuring probably 34 copies of basic energies. That's why we actually get to do so much damage early in the game. And even for our 3rd strike, I think this is our 3rd strike. We haven't played Basculegion a single time, I don't think. So this is quite crazy. We have 12 cards left in the deck. I don't think we played Basculegion at all for this game. Which is just madness, isn't it? We got really lucky because we actually played Sonia and Arezu a lot of times. That means we don't need to I don't think we need to play Upstream Spirits if we can get enough damage in the game. Because Big Sand Cannon alone is powerful. It's powerful enough. Unless if you have like, you know, not enough energies in the deck. If you are about to deck yourself out, make sure you use Basculegion, because that's the only way to save yourself. We have no rots, nothing else but that attack, which actually is a 0 energy cost attack. That means all you need to do is retreat. If you are planning on using Basculegion on your next turn, think about putting another Pokemon in the active spot as the new active. So if they kill off your Sandaconda on their last turn, if you put, for example, a Basculin or a basic Zoroark as the new active, you can attach an energy to your active Pokemon, retreat to discard the energy, and then use Upstream Spirits to do 20 extra damage for the discarded energy for the retreat cost. So make sure you play that attack smart, because you don't need to attach to your Basculin, you don't need to attach to the Legion to attack for 20x damage. You can attach to your other Pokemon. That's the power of Hisuian Pokemon, right? 0 energy attackers. I think this is probably by far the best Hisuian ever. Decidueye is okay, I guess. Zoroark is quite terrible, because if your opponent have enough switch cards, they can quite easily erase the effect. It is a 1 price though, that means they need to keep on switching over and over just to deal with that crazy attack. The 1 price Zoroark, if you guys are wondering. It does an attack that has the same effect as Slowking V. So Slowking V does I think it requires 2 energies, one darkness and 1 colorless, to Word of Ruin, right? It has the Word of Ruin attack that knocks out your opponent's Pokemon. It's kind of like Perish Song, isn't it? Perish Song. Kind of a fast-paced Perish Song attack. Your opponent's the defending Pokemon, right? Your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out on your opponent's next turn if they do not retreat, if they don't evolve at the end of your opponent's next turn. So we actually did another Big Sand Cannon for the knockout instead of the Basculegion, because we know we have nothing but energies inside the deck, but we have, I think, 1 extra card that isn't an energy, maybe a Sonia or a Arezu. But since we just need 240 to kill off the Zacian, we decided to just Big Sand Cannon for the win. Quite an unusual case though, because normally you wouldn't be that lucky to get Sonia and Arezu at the perfect time and discard that many energies from the get-go as well. So that was almost a very, very lucky game, I would say. So it would be a lot smarter if you can, it would be a lot more of a challenge if you can win the game getting a terrible hand, right? And just to provide for that, just in case we get stuck, we have our Comfy, and for the second list, right? For the second variation of this deck, we have our Comfy and Greninja to draw cards. We even have our Outer Ball, 2 copies to get extra copies, extra evolutions into our hand. And Zoroark helps you transform as well. For the first version of this deck, we have our Klara to retrieve cards from the discard pile. We have our Milotic to keep our bench, so if they play Avery, they cannot actually discard anything. We have one less Ultra Ball, and I think 1 less Sandaconda as well. But to replace for that, we actually get to keep our bench, which is a big deal, right? So the good thing about the second list is that you get to evolve your Sandaconda a lot faster, playing 4 copies. And also, if you have like your Sandaconda discarded with your Big Sand Cannon, if you discard extra copies of the stage 1, you can actually either transform with your Zoroark or bench a Silly Cobra, and then wait for your 4th copy to show up into your hand because you are playing 4 Sandacondas. That means even if you discard another one that you don't need with an extra copy, then you have at least 1 left, 1 remaining before you have to transform with your Zoroark. So it's better to have 4 Sandacondas. I actually prefer that just because, you know, if you can evolve Silly Cobra twice, that means you just need to transform once into a Sandaconda. You may not even need to transform into Sandaconda at all. You can actually choose either Big Sand Cannon or Upstream Spirits, right? That Zoroark can actually transform into one or the other. Whereas if you only have, if you only evolve one Sandaconda with your Silly Cobra, that means you should be transforming back into the Sandaconda with your Zoroark. That you don't have a choice. So that's why I prefer like more Sandacondas in the deck. That actually helps you play that card to evolve from your hand more easily. But if you have Klara though, I think it actually solves that problem. So Klara to replace for the Sandaconda, and then Milotic to replace for the Comfy, and an Ultra Ball. I don't think it's too bad. It's kind of like, I would say both decks are kind of the same in terms of performance, but I prefer Milotic just because it actually blocks a lot of things, right? If you have evolution cards in your hand, and if they play a Marnie, it blocks the Marnie. If you have like a full bench with full evolutions, it blocks Avery. It's gonna do a lot. It blocks Roxanne as well, which is really, really powerful. So they may actually target the Milotic, which means you would have a lot more attackers on the next turn. If they kill the Milotic, that means you can actually attack more times with Sandaconda, Zoroark, and also Basculegion. So that's the power of Milotic. It's actually having a target on its back more than any of your other Pokemons, but I don't think they would be doing that though. If you have a Milotic, I feel like they would just give up on playing an Avery on you and just, you know, because there's just no point, is there? If you play a Milotic and they can at some point do an Avery after the knockout, you wouldn't need any more bench Pokemons, would you? Because by then you would have enough knockouts already. Because you're attacking with the same Pokemon twice, and then all you need is like 3 more Pokemons after that, maybe an extra one. So if you bench wisely after that, you would be able to counter that, you know, Avery after the Milotic knockout. If they play Avery before you evolve the Milotic though, that would be quite bad. But all you need is to play your Basculin a second time. If you use that 0 energy attack to bench a second time, you can actually recover. That's why we need 4 copies of Basculin. Just because we may need to attack with it twice. We may need to use Gather the Crew twice. Anyways, right now we have our Zoroark. For the transformation, we're going to transform back into the Sandaconda, and then take the knockout on the Blissey. So we have 6 prizes remaining. They got their first knockout already, and I don't think they are healing enough. They may just choose not to heal because they can't actually do enough damage if they do Hyper Potion. If they play some other heal cards though, like Lucky Ice Pop Honey, they can actually recover a lot. They may be able to recover a lot without having to discard their energies. There's gonna be a big heal card for the next set, Paradigm Trigger. Not sure if it's out for Silver Tempest, but there's a new Quad Stone item card that allows you to heal all damage counters, heal all damage from all of your Pokemon in play for an item card if you have all 4 pieces play at the same time. So it's kind of like Custom Catcher, Cross Switcher, Cross Receiver, except you need to play all 4 copies in a single turn at the same time. That's virtually impossible, isn't it? Like, I'm not sure if you can even pull it off in a single game. You know, if you're lucky, you may be able to, but I think you may think about Starbirth, Star Abyss to search for the item, or maybe even Magnezone VStar. You can search for 2 item cards at a time. You know, I think Magnezone VStar would be quite interesting. And a nice combo with Quad Stone, but you're not tanking a lot of damage with Magnezone, So I don't see Quad Stone being that powerful a card. A lot of people say it would be much better if you have, if you are required to play only 2 or even 3 at a time for a max recovery on one Pokemon. I think that would really be super strong though. But I guess they're trying to make the game, they're trying to control the game such that no max potion will ever come back, right? Even in Sun and Moon, there's no max potion. I don't think there is a max potion for Sun and Moon. I'm not sure though. I think there is. My bad. I think they're just trying to make sure Sword and Shield doesn't have a max potion, because item is quite crazy, isn't it? They're replacing it with Cheryl, which is actually recovering all damage from all of the evolution Pokemons and discarding all energies, which is kind of the same thing as your max potion for a supporter card. We need an item though, like proper heal item. Not just, honey, lucky ice pop, like Yell Towel. Lucky ice pop and the honey is not bad though, but I would prefer some other solid, some other more solid item cards, like even Emergency Jelly for the next set is going to be interesting as well. So Emergency Jelly has kind of the same effect as your Last Chance Potion, and it's going to work really well for Blissey, except it's actually a tool card, so I don't think it's going to work for Blissey, honestly, because you need to attach your Cape of Toughness. If it's going to get rotated, then we may actually need, well, Big Charm is going to get rotated as well, so I don't know what Blissey is going to be able to play with once those cards gets rotated. So I guess post-rotation, Blissey would work with Emergency Jelly, but, we don't really have to think about that for now. It's a tool card, that means you actually have to, you can't afford to attach your other tool cards like Cape of Toughness, Rocky Helmet, Rugged Helmet. You cannot do Choice Belt, you cannot do a lot of things, right? Last Chance Potion is an item, which means you get to play it freely from your hand, and you don't have to attach it to your Pokemon, you don't have to wait a turn, but you actually get to discard it though. You get to discard the tool card once you have done the recovery at the end of your turn. If you have 30 or less HP remaining, you get to heal 120 damage from your Pokemon, discard the tool card, and then on your next turn you get to attach your Cape of Toughness again. But obviously you have to wait one turn, and by then your opponent can actually collect the knockout against a Blissey. 250 HP is not a lot. Even with Gardevoir, if you play Lake Acuity with Gardevoir, I don't think it's enough, because that's not even 300. Okay. So we got our Basculin and Zora for our first turn. All we need is a Basculin really to basically duplicate on a bench. Okay, we're up against a Clefairy deck. Okay, we just need to hit fast. If we can hit fast, we can collect our first prize. That would be the end of the game for them. We need to keep on benching though, because they're playing a 1 prize. That means we need to collect all 6 prizes one at a time, and it's not that easy against a 1 prize, because if we don't get enough attackers out, we're gonna run out of them eventually, and they're gonna be able to consistently knock out 1 Pokemon at a time as well with their Clefairy. Quite easy to do that with their Rescue Carrier and switch cards. If they play the Widear though, if they at some point they need to play it just to attack for that, to continue the flow of their attack, if at some point they are forced to play the Widear, we actually get to collect the knockout on the next turn by drawing 2 prize, and we may be able to win that way. But if we hit first, if they don't get enough switch cards, if we hit first, I think we stand a good chance. So we got Arezu, no Sonia, nothing else. We're just gonna gather the crew for a Sandaconda and maybe a Greninja or maybe another Basculin. We should be doing 2 Sandacondas though. I don't think they're gonna be able to play a boss and a switch at the same time. If they need to play that many switches, I'm pretty sure they would need like a research or something. Unless if they're playing Crobat. So they just need 1 switch though, don't they? If they play 1 switch and a boss from their hand, they can actually kill the Silly Cobra right now, because they got 80 damage 80 damage. Well, 100 damage, my bad. If they attach one from their hand, well, they can't attach. If those two cards are the necessary ones, are the necessary pieces, they can switch, boss, and we're done. So, no. It's pretty tight though, so they got nothing in their hand, apparently. No Greninja for the door sport. Okay, we got our first strike, fast and easy. We got triple evolution with our Arezu. We're gonna evolve the Sandaconda, Zoroark, and Basculegion. Okay, big sand cannon for a first hit. We just need one discard. Are we gonna get one discard? I think we actually got nothing for this, like, this game. It was totally bizarre, but we actually got nothing. I'm pretty sure. Like, I remember this game. Look at that. Big sand cannon for 0 damage. That's a first. That's a first. We just need one discard though. Because it's a fairy type. It's not a psychic ghost. A fairy type means it has no fighting resistance. Okay. If it's a Greninja, they still have nothing. It has to be a Crobat or a Radiant Venusaur. The only other thing I can think of is maybe Snorlax, Gormandice. I don't think there's any other one price card that allows you to draw cards except for maybe Empoleon. Emergency surfacing. Okay. So we're gonna play Arezu to get more cards out from the deck so that we actually get to discard energies this time. We're gonna attach for Skull Bash, prepare for Skull Bash just in case they, choose not to attack on the next turn. They're probably gonna attack though. I think we're gonna have to transform into the Sandaconda. So I think, sometimes you may not have a choice, because if you play Basculegion, leaving Zoroark on the bench, they may be able to do a boss on the next turn. If they do a boss and kill off your Zoroark, then you have nothing but Basculegion to attack, and Basculegion is not doing any damage. After your first hit with Basculegion, you have to attack with something else. If you attack a second time with Upstream Spirits, you're not gonna do a knockout. Not possible. Not even with Ultra Ball. Well, against Clefairy, obviously it's possible, but I don't think you would get that 1 or 2 copy of Ultra Ball that easily. So they just did an escape rope and they saved our Sandaconda in the active. That means we get to use it to attack a second time, and since it's a normal type, since it's a colorless Pokemon, we get to use Skull Bash for the knockout, saving those cards in our deck, because we would probably be discarding, we want to be getting our Sonia. We got it from the prize. We don't want to be discarding our basic Pokemons and then be left with no attackers on the next turn, because all they need is really 3 knockouts. So I think we should be playing Basculegion right now. Maybe, I don't know. If you have 2 Legions on the bench, you should play them separately, right? If you wait too long to play both, then the last one's not going to do anything. You have to space them out. Okay, they did a quick ball. They actually did the wide ear. So, we got 0 discard though. I guess it's kind of a fair game in a sense, because we got 0 energy discard for our first hit, which is totally bogus because we got 30 energies in the deck. It's totally ridiculous. And I mean, how is that even possible? And they played the wide ear, which was kind of a bit of a misplay for them, but it's a win-win, I guess. It's an even situation, not a win-win, but an even. It evens things out. We're gonna do Moonwatch again. Moonwatch Party, I think. That is, the new Clefable actually protects you from Dragon-type Pokemon. So all of your opponent's dragon type Pokemon do 30 less damage to your Pokemon. And that means, you know, Goodra is doing less damage, Giratina is doing less damage, Duraludon is doing less damage as well. Duraludon doing less damage is saying a lot, right? Because if you play Goodra VStar with Clefable, Duraludon's Gmax Pulverization cannot kill your Goodra that easily. Well, I don't think that ability works against Duraludon, right? Because Gmax Pulverization ignores all effects of your opponent's attacks. And I don't think it's your opponent's Pokemon, I think it's your Pokemon. Your Pokemon take 30 less damage from your opponent's Dragon-type Pokemon, and even then, I don't think Duraludon's attack is gonna get affected by that. So I think I'm just gonna end the voice right here, and if you guys are focused on the game, hope you guys enjoyed this new combo. They are featuring the new Hisuian Basculegion from Lost Origin with the Upstream Spirits attack, doing 20x damage for each basic energy in your discard pile, and shuffling all of them back into the deck. We're using this card with our Sandaconda from Battle Styles, hitting 60x damage for each fighting energy you discard from the top 6 cards of your deck, with Big Sand Cannon for only 1 fighting energy cost. We also have our Zoroark with Phantom Transformation ability, helping us transform into either our Sandaconda back or into a Basculegion to hit for big damage, and also to shuffle back to prepare for our next Big Sand Cannon. We have our 1 copy of Klara to retrieve our Pokemon and energies, 4 Sonias and 4 Basculin to help us set up our bench, 4 Arezus and 1 Ultra Ball to get our evolutions, 1 Milotic to help us guard our bench against Avery, guard our hand against Marnie, and also 1 Radiant Greninja for the draw sport. So that's all for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. Have a great day and bye for now, lovely people! Enjoy your life!
Vamos!